So, thank you so much for joining us. We kind of moved my presentation to her computer, so if there's technical difficulties on that end, I apologize. Um, so, this month's topic is risk. So, before I get started, what I want you to do is look around the room, find one person that you do not know, introduce yourself, tell them what you do for a living, get that information back, and then sit down. When everything's quiet, I'll start. Go. So thank you. Now that you know who you're sitting in the room with, we can get started. What you just did was a step in the right direction to taking risks. Usually we go to networking events, usually we go to shows and art shows and gigs, and we don't talk to anybody. And that's pretty detrimental to your growth and your achieving your goals. So from now on, go out there and put yourself out there, and that's a risk. That's leaving your comfort zone. Again, my name is Shahab Zargari, and I am a filmmaker. I'm an entrepreneur, managing partner of a creative agency in town. The other managing partner is Jacob Gallegos, and we're just amped to be here. Uh, we're a creative agency, so everything that has to do with branding, design, video, everything under that umbrella. But instead of having like a catchphrase that's like future of design or something silly like that, our tagline is "We all matter," and there's a whole bunch of connotations to that. But what that means for all of us here today is that you all matter. And what that means is your goals matter. And if your goals really matter, you should be risking leaving your comfort zone to achieve those goals. So the topic is risk. Why are humans afraid of that word? A lot of my talk today is going to be based on a brand new book that's coming out by Angela Duckworth. This book does not come out until next month, and it's called Grit. And if any of you, if that rings a bell, she actually did a TED Talk with the same name. And what this is kind of expanding on that TED Talk, but what she did was she did some research on the military, uh, spelling bee participants, and attendees at local public schools. And what she wanted to see was, can you look at talent and determine the rate of success? And she did a bunch of research and found that there is absolutely no correlation between talent and success. What she found was that when she measured grit instead, that there was a definite correlation between the people who dropped out of the race and the people who actually won and succeeded in their goals. So one of the things she says are people are great when things are going well. And yet, as soon as things start to go south, they give up. Now, that's just humanity in general. Let's do an example. So, you're starting a business, you do a tech startup, and everything's going good, and you've got you're going to change the world. Your team is excited, everyone's having fun. 6 months down the road, you aren't being noticed. You can't raise the funding that you need to do what you need to. Normally, people throw in the towel. Okay, well, that didn't work. I guess I'm just going to have to go, work at a retail job and get that paycheck to pay off my bills. And that's just, it's not a testament to your character. That's just what we end up doing. So where does the fear of risk come from? one of the things that she says in the book is, as humans, what we do is we look at people who are successful and we say, you know what? They have something called talent, which, you know what? I don't have that talent. And so, I just, that's what they have and I don't. Okay. But when we focus on talent, there's one thing that gets ignored that is just as important for reaching your goals as talent: effort. Okay, going back to the name of Angela Duckworth's TED Talk and her book is grit, is the putting forth the effort, whether or not you're at a high or at an ultimate low. Frederick Nietzsche is a philosopher, and he had a whole bunch of opinions on a whole lot of things. Now, when it comes to this obsession with, saying that these other people have talent that we don't have, this is what he had to say. With everything perfect, we do not ask how it came to be. Instead, we rejoice in the present fact as though it came out of the ground by magic. It gets better. Okay? No one can see the work of the artist and how it has become. For if we think of genius as something magical, we are obliged to not find to find ourselves lacking, right? To call something divine means that there is no need to compete. I'm a filmmaker, but you know what? George Clooney's a producer, he's a director, he's an actor, he's a filmmaker. He got that divine touch. He has that talent, so no need for me to compete. Okay? And that's how, as humans, we have been conditioned to think of people who are successful, of people who have talent. But that gold medalist who's skiing down the mountain, they were not given some magic. They worked really hard and they put in a lot of effort in order to get that gold medal. And that is something that we just do not see. Now, as a creative, as a business owner, as someone who goes to work every day trying to, do their best, the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that enthusiasm, that's common, okay? Especially at the beginning and you're excited, but endurance is rare. So you've got to, set your sight on that goal, and whether or not you feel like you're making it, keep at that goal. Just keep at it. That is what people who have success do. And what does that mean when it pertains to risk? You have your sights set on that goal. You will risk going outside of your comfort zone in order to reach that goal. Another interesting part of the book, she talks about how usually people talk about passion and how passion is like fireworks. But she says, you know what? Fireworks explode, but then they fizzle and die out. She thinks that passion is more like a compass, something that has to be built and fine-tuned in order to work correctly. And once it's working correctly, then you have to know and learn how to use it in order for it to point you in the right direction toward your objective. And her take on that is all you have to do is think of passion as that compass and stay on that course for as long as you can. And that is the grit that you're looking for. There was a anecdote in the book, which was quite interesting, and she doesn't even know if it's true. It was just kind of hearsay. But Warren Buffett, self-made billionaire, supposedly gets into his airplane and looks at his pilot, because billionaires have pilots that fly them around, things like that nature. And he looks at the pilot and goes, do you really want to be my pilot for the rest of your life? I mean, don't you have aspirations and goals? And, the pilot's like, well, I do, but I mean, I'm not a billionaire, so I can't. And so supposedly, Warren Buffett looked at him and said, look, there's 3 things you can do to reach your goals. Number 1, write down 25 of the most important career goals in your life. Write them all down. Step number 2, do a little bit of soul searching and circle the top 5. It's kind of hard to do because all 25 are important. Circle the top 5. Step number 3, those 20 that you did not circle, forget about them. Do not waste time on them. Do not waste money on them. Do not borrow money to work on. All of those 20 are distractions keeping you from the 5 most important goals, keeping you from being able to make a decision to risk money, to risk time, to risk your coming out of your comfort zone in order to reach your goals. And what Angela Duckworth says in the book is, okay, so let's say you follow this 3 tips. Will that get you to be as rich and famous as Warren Buffett? Probably not. But you will successfully see your goals to fruition. And it'll be that top 5. It will be you reaching the goals that you want and being happy, as opposed to doing it for someone else or, making someone else's dreams come true. Now, like I said, this book does not come out until May 2016. We're going to be giving this copy away. We're not going to do that until after Raina's done with her set, so please stick around. Again, have some more coffee, have some pizza, and then we'll do a fun little game to give this away. It's a phenomenal book. If you don't get the book, please go and purchase it. I'm not getting paid to say that, by the way. I'm just a super fan. So, since a lot of what I talked about today was about how to prepare yourself to risk, I do want to bring up Jacob Gallegos real quick, my managing partner at Higher Ground, to just kind of touch on what risk means to him, because we took a huge risk starting our company last July. And Jacob Gallegos, everybody.
AKA the sign knockover. But yeah, a lot of things that, Shahab was saying, you take a risk on certain things. And the biggest thing for me was seeing him. He was such an inspiration, and I'm not up here to, he's my buddy, but seeing him take so many risks was so important to me, because I was so driven career-wise, where it's like, get a job, get a steady paycheck, live that kind of life where you're comfortable and you forget about your own passions. And I think with that, seeing him being such an entrepreneur and following his dreams and having a family at the same time, I'm sitting there going, how are you doing this, man? Aren't you worried about what's to come? And he's like, why waste that? Put that energy towards something else. And, having a daughter and being a father myself, it's one of those things where I like to implement that into, and her name is Parker's life, where she gets to see dad follow his dreams and passion over paychecks. And one of those things to where if she wants to fight for something and go for something, then take that risk and don't be afraid. Because I think Jim Carrey said it the best, but you can fail at something you hate. Why not fail at something you love? And it's really not failing. Your failing is not doing it. If you just sat in the sidelines, then I feel like you're failing. But if you try, then you're trying to do something. You can always go get that desk job. You can always go get that. So one of my biggest inspirations through Shahab was, when he came to me last year and was like, hey man, we have under 30 years of creative directing and creative marketing. Let's kind of combine that. I was afraid. I mean, I'm a Jew, so I was sitting there going, well, hold on. I mean, I got to think about the money side of this, and what do I got to do? And he's like, just trust me. So I did. I took that risk, and I took that leap of faith, and I trusted him to where, there's good days and there's bad days, but that's the best part about the risk. Because you can look back and say, you know what, I'm not regretting anything that I'm doing. And being young and and looking at that going, 10 years down the road when higher grounds is where we want it to be, we can look back and laugh about those risks. And the most important thing that I want to at least share to you guys is Bill Watterson. He is a comic book artist for Calvin and Hobbes. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. But he worked for one of the highest agencies in the world, and he was an illustrator. Back then it was like watercolors and stuff like that. But he had such a creative eye that he sat down and he looked at it and goes, you know what? I'm making somebody else's dreams come true. I'm following their passion. I'm not doing what I want. So he quit. He went home, and his wife was like, are you insane? We have a child on the way. Like, I'm pregnant. This isn't going to work. What do you mean? And he asked her, he said, just trust me. I'm going to take a risk, but just trust me on this. And he followed his dreams, created up a cartoon based off his cat, and one of those things where it's like, and we all remember it's nostalgic to where we're like, oh my God, Calvin and Hobbes. And the imagination that stood behind it. And he fought for it, and he fought for it, and he wanted it. And he got to basically grow up with his kid, and he got to teach her the ways of what he did. So to me, that's so important because, again, I go back to looking back and saying, Parker, this is what Daddy did. This is my footprint in the world, and the coolest thing to remember is that having that, one of the things I'm so envious of Shahab is you go through his library and you see books that he's published and records that he's made and art books that he's done and his DVDs that he has, and his kids get to go through that and see those little, treasures that he's kind of created because he followed his dreams. He didn't sit there and listen to everybody else going, no, this isn't going to work out. He's like, no, F you, I'm going to do this.
Because, my parents have always been like, well, what are you doing? And I know my accountant doesn't like the risks I take, but,